All right. Well, welcome everyone to another episode of the Investment Club PCS. My name is Stephanie, as always, joined by my co-host Kane. Hello, Kane.
Hello.
For those of you who don't know, PCS stands for Provo Canyon School. It is a residential treatment center for troubled teens in Provo Canyon, Utah. Both Kane and I did attend there, and we created this channel for two reasons. One, mainly to create a space for anyone and everyone who has been to Provo Canyon or programs similar to kind of share their story, their truth, and connect with others. And then two, to spread awareness about the truth of what really happens in these programs and hopefully prevent any other children or families from being taken advantage of by these places, being abused. So today we are sitting down with Marc Wilson. He was there at Provo Canyon from 1986 to 87 and also 1988 to 1989. So yeah, without further ado, I'll turn it over to Marc. Marc, welcome. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about what life was like before going to Provo? Kind of take it from there.
So my story's a little unique. I came to the United States when I was 12. I stole $10,000 in a 9mm pistol from my dad's backpack, and we were headed to the next duty post. I didn't want to travel overseas anymore, so I spent about a year and a half hitchhiking across the United States from about the age of 12 to 13 and a half. And my parents went on to their duty post in Africa, and I stayed in the U.S. hitchhiking and hanging out. And then I was arrested, and I started my journey with these schools at a school called DeSisto on the East Coast, and went to both of their campuses. They were eventually shut down, and then I was introduced to Provo.
Had you heard of anything about Provo before you were sent there? Did you know kind of what you were in for?
I had no idea. My parents said because I was coming out of such a horrible school, DeSisto on the East Coast, I was really apprehensive and really guarded when it came to boarding schools. But the State Department, which my dad worked for, recommended Provo as well as DeSisto. So I didn't have much faith in their recommendation, but I said, all right, well, let's go check out the school. And we were supposed to just be going to take a tour. And when I got there, I realized that I was going to be staying at the end of the tour.
Wow.
And,
so they kind of tricked you in there.
Yeah. They knew I wouldn't go willingly.
So when you go through this tour, like how did they even tell you? They were just like, okay, you're staying here? Like what?
Yeah, we toured the school, kind of walked through. They showed me the cafeteria, and then we went into Mr. I think Olson, I can't remember his name, the one of the head directors there, and his office. And my parents were sitting on one side of the desk. I was sitting in a chair, and then they brought in a pair of sweats, and I was I thought something was up. I was like, why are they bringing sweats in here? And then they told me that I was staying.
Really quickly, I'd like to just ask, in comparison of the schools you were at previously, was Provo similar, better, worse? I don't know anything about the programs you were in before.
DeSisto was run by a guy named Mike DeSisto. He was shut down by the feds. It was really abusive.
I feel like I've heard that name. I really do feel like I've heard that name before.
Yeah, there was Howie in the Hills, which was in Florida campus, and then there was Stockbridge in Massachusetts. I was at both campuses. I wasn't at that school for very long. I was at Howie for about 3 weeks and then ran away and was gone for about 6 months. When then I got caught up by the police and they got me back to Howie. I was transported to the campus in Massachusetts because I'd run away with a girl there, and I guess they wanted to separate us. So I was transferred to Massachusetts, and I was there in Massachusetts for about 2 months before I started hatching my escape plan.
So did you escape again from that place, or you went straight from there to Provo?
I did. And then I hitchhiked back down to Florida from Massachusetts.
And then from there you went to Provo?
No, from there I went to Provo. I was gone for about 5-6 months that time, and the people that I was staying with were worried that they were going to get in trouble, I think, because they were harboring a runaway, and my parents were overseas and I was just some kid in the US with no parents here, and just the people I was with were like, hey, you can't really just live here forever.
Right. So who took you on the tour of Provo?
My parents. So I called my mom when I run away from DeSisto, and I said, I'm not going back there. And they said that they understood. They'd found out that the school was a scam, and that, they conceded that it was a bad place, and they believed some of the stuff that I was telling them about the place. And so they took me back to their duty post. And at that point, they were in the Dominican Republic. I spent the summer there. And then we always came back to the US in the summer to visit grandparents that lived in Wyoming. And while we were there, they said, hey, we're going to go check out this new boarding school. And I was like, whoa, I'm not doing that again. And they said, oh, no, they assured me it's not going to be like DeSisto. And
did they tell you there was horses and it was going to be fun?
Oh, yeah, it was, they sold it, brochures, there's a swimming pool and field trips, and, it's going to be fun.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what happens when you get there. What was your experience like that first, couple weeks?
So when I got there, I was put in, it was like a new boys dorm, and it was right next to investment. And I didn't see the outside for, I don't know how long it was. I never really went to school. When I finally did go to class, I'd forgotten my homework, and that's when the IPs started. I got 50 IPs for not doing my homework. And then I never really left investment because I think the first time I laughed or something, and I just finished standing for like 12 hours. And that's when I found out that I was not getting credit for those 12 hours I just stood. And then the next thing I know, the dial 9 button was hit, and Justin and Wayne Falfua came running at me with a couple mattresses, sandwiched me up in the middle of them, stripped me naked, threw me in the box, shot me up with the Thorazine, and it's pretty crazy.
That was
pretty crazy.
Was that at the beginning of your stay? That happened pretty quickly then?
That was within the 2 months of my stay there. And then I stood a lot of ifs. And when I was
why
there,
didn't people just refuse to stand? Because I know if that were me, I would have just refused to stand. Like, I'm not standing all day. Like, nope, not happening.
Well, so we didn't have to stand. You could sit for half a credit.
Yeah. I heard you could sit for half a credit. Like, that would just be what I'd do, man. Like, fuck it, man. I'd just sit. Like that, they got rid of that by the time I was there. I don't know what the benches were like in investment. Hell, I don't even know if they had benches in investment when we were there. But it's
There
the
was no benches when I was there. Your butt wasn't allowed to touch the ground. You had to kind of military squat against the wall for
oh,
5 minutes and turn around and stand again.
oh wow, no. So they went ahead and put in these. I wouldn't even call them benches. What I would basically call it is they brought in a carpenter who put a bench going this way and then something that came down at like a 45-degree angle to provide the support, and the walls absolutely leaned forward, so even if you wanted to, you were basically always sitting kind of like this, like just
Yeah.
forward the whole time. Like just I wouldn't even sit on the benches. I'd sit on the ground. Like I'd sit on the ground next to the door or something and do my homework or something. Like I just, yeah. They got rid of the standing. I think they realized that was torture. Literal torture.
They'd gotten rid of it the second time I went back. They were still standing, or you could sit for half a credit, or you could write an essay for a third of a credit.
I'm curious. So you said that in your first program, you told your parents what was going on and they believed you. So well, my first question is, how long were you there before you were able to communicate with your parents in Provo?
It was about 2 or 3 months before they kept making excuses on why I wasn't allowed to have my phone call. And I'm sure they were telling my parents that I acted up or whatever story they're telling my parents. And when I finally did get on the phone, the minute I attempted to even try to say something, the call was ended.
Wow.
I just couldn't ever say anything. They screened my letters. They read my mail. We have to take lie detector tests all the time. It was just,
What?
What? Tell us about
yeah,
that. I've never heard that.
I've never heard this.
Yeah, what were the lie detector tests for?
It was just weird. Like they would ask you about, like, did you smoke pot? And like, I was like, yeah. And they're like, we understand that that's bad for you. And it was like, I'm not sure if it was even a lie detector test. It was more just to beat you down, like on who you were and like the things you did, like to make you feel shitty about yourself. Like it was some weird reverse gestalt therapy or so. I don't know how to explain it. It was just,
Were they like telling you, was it be like where you were sitting in like, say, like police interrogation and they're like telling you did the crime when you know you're innocent? They're like, no, you
yeah,
did this. And you just basically,
yeah,
unless you admit it, you're not going anywhere. Is that basically what you're trying to get at the heart of here?
yeah, for sure. And then like when I finally started seeing my counselor,
Who was your counselor? Do you remember?
Jeff Kurth,
Okay.
And how long did it take you to start seeing a therapist?
like 3 or 4 months. And then I was immediately heavily sedated, and he would hypnotize me and molest me. I'd wake up with my pants undone, or it was just, I knew something was going on, but I was getting conveniently my meds would come before I'd have therapy, and then I'd go in to sit with Jeff, and then there were a couple of times I'd come to, and I certainly wasn't dressed the way I was dressed when I walked in, so
Jeez.
I knew something was going.
I am so sorry.
Oh man.
That was shitty.
Like, so okay. So you realize, uh, uh, what is this doing to you at this time? Because you ran away from one facility because this stuff's happening. somehow or another, I mean, we didn't get into what happened with you at DeSisto, but I don't know if it could possibly fall in the realm of finding your pants undone by your therapist. But with that said, like, how are your parents at any point like worried about the places that they're just dropping you into? Because really, it doesn't sound like they're looking into these places. Like, what are you
Well,
able to say to your parents at this time?
I thought after when it all went down at DeSisto that they had spent a little more time checking out the this next facility, but they were just going off State Department recommendation. So
Because your dad was just
there's
in the
no
military, so he's just taking what the State
CIA.
Department is recommending, basically.
Yeah, he worked for the CIA.
Oh,
So
okay.
what, whatever they said, hey,
Yeah, my
send him
grandfather was Secret Service, so
here
I
at the
mean,
tune of about $100,000 a year. I sat at Provo.
that's so strange. You think that somebody that would work in an intelligence would be a little bit better with intelligence, but I guess that just goes to show that we all tend to trust the people around us, and that just we assume that they're doing their best for us. You're trusting your parents, thinking that they, looked into these facilities. Your parents are trusting the State Department recommendation, and you're trusting Utah when they say it's going to be fun here. We promise. It's just,
Well, yeah, and my parents had a, you know, their my dad was a Harvard graduate, and was in the military, and same rank as a full bird colonel. They had high expectations for me, and I was just an average student. I was just a C student, and I liked to smoke pot, kind of just hang out. I didn't really get much trouble, and that just wasn't okay for them to be mediocre. So they thought that these schools were gonna help me because somebody down the way told them that I had ADHD, and everybody had ADHD back then.
yeah, I did.
Apparently,
They diagnosed
yeah,
me with it.
yeah.
I don't take
So
anything for it now, funnily enough, but I was ADHD in the 80s.
yeah, I took it all.
So how does this affect your relationship with your parents overall? Is there
A
any
lot out of
relationship with them even at this point? Like,
so my father's passed. I think at the end we hadn't talked for 10 years when he died. Um, there must have been some guilt because I got a call from my mom and he'd left me a nice chunk of money. And I think that was his way of saying I'm sorry, maybe. Like,
right.
but still being the dick that he was, there was always stipulations with him. It was, here's the money, but you have to jump through these hoops to have it. Because he, even from the grave, he wanted that control over me.
Oh, that sounds exactly like something my grandma would do. I wouldn't doubt it if these like when when the people that were responsible for putting me in Provo died, because both my parents are dead, I didn't even answer the phone call from the people that told me they were dying. I'm like, that whatever, dude. I don't care. Like, let them
Right.
die, chunk the body in the sea. I do not care. I want nothing to do with them. Um,
And
you
I'm adopted, so they weren't
same
really my
here, same here.
parents, like they were my adopted parents,
But how does
I'm
it
not sure
how
why
does
they
it end with your
killed me.
mom though? How did you, because I noticed you didn't bring her up. Did you
So my mom's
reestablish
still
some
alive.
sort of connection?
Eventually, so my mom, it lives in Montreal now.
Oh, okay.
We talk on occasion. Um, she, I think, deals with a lot of guilt because she was molesting me when I was younger. So,
Yeah.
I've called her out on it, and so I think she has a relationship with me out of guilt, maybe, I don't know. She feels bad, maybe, so her way of dealing with that is showering me with money.
Look,
I get
man, this is gonna
checked all
sound
the time.
completely callous, but that would be the only thing I would be okay accepting from my dead parents is money. Like, if you want to make my life easier at the end of it, cool, I'll take it. That doesn't mean we're okay. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean I forgive you. In fact, that doesn't even mean I give a damn that you're dead, but I will take your money because I think you owe me. And that's just kind of
Yeah.
how
No, that's kind of how I am with them. My mom just won't come to terms, or I guess
they're
refuses to.
unable to come to terms with their responsibility and their role in how you turned out, your behavior, and what caused you to not want to have a relationship with them.
They facilitated the child abuse.
Yeah, so did mine.
Yeah.
And that's why I think she could never, at least on my end, the reason I stopped talking to her, the reason I stopped talking to both of them is because I realized neither of those women were ever going to accept that they caused everything with their manipulation, with their abuse, with their constant back and forth, using me as a pawn in their game against each other to try and see which one of them had the bigger dick. Like, it was just, I was constantly put in the middle. I was tossed from home to home to home. I was used in the courts, and they just didn't want to admit that all of that had an effect on me, and just maybe I didn't come out okay because of that. And they just never could accept. It was like I had to accept that I was the cause of all the things that happened to me when I was a kid. And it took me a while to realize, no, man, you were the adult in the room. You.
No, for sure. Like, I always heard from my parents, well, you were really manipulative when you were little. And it's like,
Fuck out of here. That's what kids do.
Sure. For sure. And I got a text from her today, as a matter of fact. She was like, Paris is testifying on the Hill about schools today, which I watched the hearings today. But for her to deny and refuse to accept me telling what's happened, and to drop me a text like, hey, Paris is saying what's going on, you would think that, so you believe Paris, but not me. Like,
Yeah, so can you tell me a little bit? I know you said like you would try to tell them what was going on and your phone calls would get cut off, mail screening. Was there ever an opportunity where you were able to tell anyone what was going on, or were you just like, I'm gonna keep this to myself and hope it doesn't happen again?
oh, sure. I mean, eventually, the first time I was there, I made it to hotel status. I don't know if they had that when you guys were there.
Yeah.
Essentially, we were child labor, free labor for a hotel. We ran the hotel, we cleaned the hotel, cooking, we did everything at the hotel. I mean, there was a full, 25 females downstairs and 25 or 30 males upstairs. And, what a great deal for those owners, huh? Just free labor. Like,
Mhm.
it was
How
just
did you
crazy.
get from investment? I know you said you were on investment for a while. Like, what switched? How did you go from investment to kind of working your way up in the program to
Well,
hotel?
so eventually I realized that I needed to pretend and play by the rules, or I was going to be an investment forever. And then I made it to unit 1. I don't know what they called the units when you were there. For me, and I can still remember the floor plan in my head, but a lot of things are, I don't know, I
If you
block out.
describe
I'm
it,
not
I can
sure,
tell
but
you what it would be now.
so I remember that right before you get to the school, to the classrooms,
Yep.
there was some stairs upstairs, and that
Yeah.
was the boys' dorm, and across the hall was
Was
the
investment.
girls.
Oh, that was
No, that was the girls' dorm.
The girls' dorm became our investment.
Oh, okay.
The girls' dorm
So
became
yeah,
our investment. Pre-unit became the one that was upstairs that had the one room in the front and then the other rooms in the back on the upstairs, that became pre-unit. And the unit right down underneath pre-unit that had the courtyard out in the middle, but you couldn't go anywhere. You could get fresh air, but all it was a courtyard. That was orientation. That became orientation in that same area where you led down to school.
They didn't have a courtyard. We didn't ever see that. We didn't go outside much. I didn't go outside for the first 6 months.
I lost my sanity.
Yeah, our campus, because I went to the girls, they built a separate campus for the girls by the time I went, and we had no windows in our building whatsoever. I didn't see the outside for like the first 6 months, and then when we did get to go outside, we got to go into the cage, we called it, because they would just walk us to a tennis court that's caged in, and that was the only time we got to go outside. Yeah, the cage.
We had it better.
Yeah, they
had it better.
We eventually got to go outside, and they had big field, and you know, and they had a skate ramp there and tennis courts and all that.
Yep, still there.
But,
all of that's still there.
We didn't
when
get
I was
any
there,
of that.
nobody. I think only one kid actually ran away and made it. Like they had some Indian tracker that was working for them that he was so good, like nobody got away. Like it
Did
crazy.
you ever
Like,
try to run away?
I tried. There wasn't ever an opportunity to, other than, you know, I mean, I even beat a teacher down with a chair and tried to take her keys and just.
Wow. How
couldn't
many
get.
times did you how many times did you try to escape?
In the beginning, twice really, because there just was so little opportunity to. It had to be so well planned, you know. The one time a staff member had accidentally left an exterior door next to the auditorium in the school in the classroom area unlocked, and when we were lining up to go back to the dorms, we ran out the door, but I mean, they caught us within a couple hours. I mean,
what like, is there a moment or a thing that happened that made you change your perspective from trying to escape, trying to do all that? Like where did that change to where you were like, okay, I need to play by the rules?
so I met a kid named David Sassoon, who was Fidel Sassoon's son, and him and I became really good friends. And he pretty much told me that you're going to be here until you're 18 unless you start pretending and jumping through the hoops. And
it's always another kid that pulls you aside and gives you the dude, you've got a bullshit.
Yeah, so I just that's what I started doing, is pretending, you know. And eventually I worked my levels and made it to hotel and got out and super excited, you know. I thought I'd never go back to Provo again, and yeah.
So
that's where I never.
Yeah, walk us through time two.
What's that?
Well, I was going to say, walk me through time two. How do you go from I'm never going back, which is the same thing I said, to all right, I'm back?
Well, I'm curious because I've never heard of anyone actually graduating the program and leaving. So you were only there for a year and you actually like graduated the program and they said you were okay to go home?
Well, it was a little more than a year because I went like the beginning of 86 and like middle, almost end of 87. So I was there for like 16, 17 months. You know, and I made all my levels, and you know, I was granted a visit to go home, which I was gone for like a week, and just, you know, I bullshitted my parents. I look how reformed I am, you know, and my parents bought it, you know, and They're like, okay, well, we'll give you a chance. And
So did your parents pull you, or did the program actually say, yes, he's okay to go home?
no, they said I could go home.
Oh, wow.
They
You did a good
they
job.
yeah, well, so my parents always went with the school's recommendation. They said as long as the school is okay with it, then we'll be okay with it. As long as you've progressed to where you need to be. And I was at hotel, and I
Mhm.
was doing everything I was supposed to do. And when I got out, by then now they were stationed in Canada, and I got in trouble as soon as I
So
got out.
so
Canada.
you left Provo. Did you go with your parents to Canada?
Yep. Yep. Moved to
Okay.
Canada with them. And I just, so in Canada, there's 12th grade and then there's 13th grade. So they have like an extra year of high school. And I was like, wait a minute, like, I'm not going for an extra year. Just because
Right.
Canada, like, what are you talking about? And
Like, there's no
so instead of
13th grade.
so instead of going to school, I was ditching class, and I got myself a job at McDonald's, and I was working, and I was selling bud, and I had diplomatic immunity, so I was running back and forth across the Canadian border and transporting weed and making money. And I mean, as far as my parents knew, and then they found out that I was skipping school, and they weren't very happy. And we were coming back to the U.S. in the winter, and they said we were coming to visit my grandma for Christmas. They asked me if I wanted to go skiing, Park City. I said, no, I'm not going to Utah. I'm not going. They swore it was just a ski trip, and they bunch of family was going to be there, uncles, aunts. So I thought, okay, well, surely they're not going to pull this crap in front of family. Well, I was skiing down the ski slope and was tackled, had a pillowcase thrown over my head, was thrown in a van, and drove right back to Provo.
Oh my God.
And that's when I found out I was going to be there till I was 18.
In that in-between time, did you ever try to open up to your parents about what you had been through?
Yep. They refused to believe it.
They just shut it down.
That didn't happen.
Yeah.
No way that that's happening. There's no schools doing that to children in America. It's ridiculous.
Oh my God. That's awful. And it makes complete sense that you would just, you know what I mean? You're struggling with all that stuff you just went through, and there's no support, no
Yeah.
even acknowledgement that it happened.
Oh, I mean, it was bad when I was there. I mean, there were students raping other students. I mean, it was rough. It was a scary place.
So the
Even at hotel, even at hotel status, there was a couple kids there, a kid named Caleb Hannessy, and I hated this kid. I mean, he was like he'd been court ordered there. He was like some crip from Compton, East LA or something. The kid was like 15. He bench pressed like 400 pounds. He was just, coach worked with him every day. I mean, this kid was just stacked, and he was just the meanest kid, and he'd just walk up and punch as hard as he could, and for no reason. I seen him, sexually abuse so many kids, it was just, that was
And
rough,
what would the staff do? Did the staff ever see him do this? And did he get dialed 9? And why wasn't he on
No,
investment?
he was their buddy. He was their buddy because
Yeah.
he was,
Wow.
he'd work out with Wayne Falfua. And,
Yep.
they were all, buddies, so they kind of just turned the cheek. They just
If
looked
you
the
had
other way.
if you had strength in there, like if you were a big son of a bitch and you could do some serious damage to the counselors, that was the only time they thought twice about touching you. Once you got to their size, like man size, that's the only time they thought twice. When I came back the second time and I went from being like 6'1" to 6'6", 270 pounds, they treated me a lot different. They never
Yeah, for sure.
touch me.
Same with me. I mean, when I first went there, I was 120 pounds, and then going back the second time, I was, 170, I'd filled out, and I wasn't a little tiny kid anymore.
So
They didn't
tell us,
push me around.
yeah, tell us about the second time. Like, how fucking angry were you
Oh my God.
going back the second time?
So I got thrown in the van and, taken back to Provo, and I didn't know what was going on because of my dad's job. I thought maybe I'd been kidnapped by the
Right?
Taliban. I mean, like,
Yeah.
my dad's a CIA. I'm like, what in the fuck is going on here? And as soon as they took the pillowcase off, I knew exactly where I was. And I spent 2 nights in the box on Thorazine, and then they got me out, put me in sweats, and brought me to the front into an office. And my mom and dad were sitting there. My mom was pulling her fake crying, like, we didn't want this to happen. And it was about a 15-second conversation where I tried to jump over the desk and beat the shit out of both of them, and was quickly subdued and thrown in the box. And it was only by chance that I happened to catch a commercial on TV that was said that you could join the military with no high school diploma. You just had to be 17 years old. So when I finally got to a place where I was allowed to make a phone call, I called the Navy recruiter and the police department. And the Navy recruiter came out to speak with me with the police, because I told the Navy recruiter that the school won't let you see me. And if what I've read is right, I want to join the military, and it's my God-given right to fight for my country. And, I was just feeding that recruiter what he wanted to hear, and he's just trying to get people in the Navy. So,
and he's looking
they
at
came
you
in.
thinking, I got the son of a full bird colonel, CIA station chief. Hell yeah, I'm looking good right now.
Pretty much.
He doesn't know he's got Captain Fuck Up on his hands, but
Yeah. So I just studied really hard for the ASVAB, passed it. And on my 17th birthday, I was out of there.
How pissed were the staff? Upset? Did they not care at this point? Like, where? What? What were your parents saying? Did they know what you were doing?
No, because I had to get their permission to join. They had to sign off on me joining the military at 17 on my 17th birthday, because I was still a minor. So even though it was a non-grad enlistment, you still had to have parental permission. So I quickly fell back into that, tell them what they want to hear, do what you got to do to get them to sign off. And I knew if I fed my dad with, well, I've realized that I want to be a career, military guy, and I want to follow in your footsteps, blah, blah, blah. My dad would be all in on, oh, he's finally going to join the military and, turn his life around. So he was all in for me joining the military. He was happy for me to join.
So how was
And
that? So you leave.
I just joined so I could get emancipated, because I knew once I joined the Navy that my parents had no say over. I was an adult, I was a sailor, and I went through boot camp, and pretty soon the Gulf War, the first one, was starting to gear up, and I thought, holy shit, I just joined the military to get out of Provo, and now I'm going to be stuck in the Gulf.
To be fair,
no.
that entire war lasted 3 days.
Yeah, but
I mean, that's
unless you were
lot.
flying an F-117 Nighthawk, then you probably weren't doing much work in that mission.
But like,
right.
Can we just acknowledge that you would rather go into the military and face war than stay in one of these programs. Like that's a
For
huge,
sure.
that's
Yeah.
insane.
That
You're
I
not
left.
insane. I'm saying that just really
No,
speaks to how awful these places are.
they were horrible. I got a check for like $8,000, 7,000 after boot camp, and I literally just didn't go back. After I got 4 days leave, and I went AWOL for until I got arrested, and then I went through court martial and went to the brig for a while, and then I got my separation, and I was finally free.
Let me
It's a
ask
journey I
something.
started when I was 12.
How was the brig in all of this? After DeSisto, after Provo, were you doing wino time in the brig at this point?
The brig was a military jail.
Yeah, yeah.
Really,
I mean, but for
it
you,
was
how
like,
was it?
yeah, it was fine. It was better than.
That's
it
what I'm
was
saying.
better
That's what
than-
I'm asking. That's the heart of what I'm getting at. After DeSisto and Provo, you're basically just on wino time. Just, man, I'm in a country club right now. Like 3 hots
for
and
sure.
hot, and I don't have to do anything. Dude, please
No,
sign me up.
just cards, and I built pallets. That was my job when I was in the Navy, while I was in the brig. And then when I got my separation, they handed me a check and said, "See ya." And I didn't have to report to my parents anymore. I got to go do what I'd started out to do when I was 12 and ran away from that airport in Miami, which was just come to the U.S. and live my life.
So tell me about that. What did you do with your freedom and what's life like
Oh,
now?
So I moved back to Wyoming where my grandparents lived because I had friends that I'd made every summer going home, and I ended up dating a gal and having my son who's now 30. He's got a couple kids, my grandkids, and I got pretty addicted to cocaine. Was selling a lot of cocaine, and ended up in Denver, and then I was homeless on the beach in Florida for years. And long story short, I kind of came to and was sober and somehow I'd gotten from Florida to Texarkana, Texas, and I was walking through a mall looking for cigarettes or money, something. And there was this guy in the mall selling jewelry, and he was trying to sell me jewelry, and I was like, "Are you not seeing that I'm homeless and I don't have any money? I'm sizing up to rob you, and you're trying to sell me something." And we talked for a while, and I told him at the end of the day, he'd never sell me anything, that before it was all said and done, I'd tell him something. And he laughed. And when it was all said and done, he'd give me $50 and offered me a job. And I was going to go smoke crack that night, party. But I decided to go to Walmart and get a pair of work pants and a shirt. Showed up for work the next day and ended up becoming a regional sales manager for this company, and traveled the U.S. and opened up like 200 stores, and ended up opening my own stores, and kind of just built my life. I've had kids, and when my dad died, he left me money. I ended up going to Florida State to go to college because that's what I had to do to get my money.
Wait,
And
he made you go to Florida State?
well, no, I had to go to school.
You just
So I
picked
went
Florida
to
State.
I had military background. I had my GED that I got when I was in the
Dude. FSU is a tremendously good school, and it's also one of the top 30 schools in the nation. I was just curious what makes somebody. I also went to college later in life, so I can really relate to this. I just was curious, like, how did you, like, what was it their military connections at Florida State that made you want to go there, or what?
No, so I was, when my dad died, I was heavy in the streets in Washington, D.C., just in Landover, Maryland. And, I was toting guns and not doing very well and destined to end up in prison. And I knew I needed to get far away from there if I was going to be successful in school. So I just applied on a whim and they accepted me. So the way the inheritance was structured is if I got into school, all expenses were paid. So I moved my family to Florida and, everything was paid for while I went to school. And then I graduated and moved to Washington. I was here 2 years, worked for a company, shattered both my knees, and I've had 9 surgeries since 2018, and I'm waiting on a settlement from workman's comp now, and hopefully I get this $1 million and just chill. I'm retired now. I just
Well, you
sit
deserve
and
it.
they pay me. I do deserve it. I've been
You
able to
you
walk for a long time.
you deserve to chill. I think
I
you
do.
hearing your story and everything that you've been through, I mean, I'm just amazed to even be sitting here talking with you. It could have turned out so many different ways, and I just really appreciate
Absolutely. I'm surprised Ted Bundy or somebody didn't pick me up while I was hitchhiking across the United States. It was not a good time to be hitchhiking in the mid 80s. There was a Hillside Strangler. There were just all kinds of bad people out there. And it was just me. I mean, just crazy.
I mean, do you ever stop and think that like sometimes your life has been something of a comic book? Because it kind of just seems like stuff happens around you and like you just kind of have to figure out how to go with it and make the best of it. And you've gotten really, really good at doing that.
Yeah. Well, so it's funny. I have another podcast Saturday with a reporter who is interested in doing a story on me and maybe writing a book. So I'm going to tell her my story on Saturday. Go a little more in depth about some of the stuff I went through, because,
Definitely. You sound,
I
yeah.
was running away from it too,
I
so
say
my
this
mom
with
said.
I say this with all honesty, but I've not met too many people that could probably rival me story for story just in terms of the sheer things that have happened to me in my life. But I have a sneaking suspicion that I would quickly tap out against you and be like, all right, look, you win. You win. And I've had some crazy shit happen to me, man. Like I've
it's
had some
not a
really
competition.
crazy stuff.
It's definitely not a competition, but
Definitely.
let us know when your book comes out or when your interview
Well, I don't
is
know what'll
up.
happen. It's just starting with,
Yeah.
just a conversation, and see where it goes.
Yeah, but keep in
She
touch.
the conversation to come to Capitol Hill and do some testifying up there. That's how it all started. She was looking for people that had been in some of these bad schools, and initially I was slated to be testifying on Capitol Hill, but I've got some pretty serious health issues going on with my legs, so I kind of passed on that.
In
So we're gonna
today's
sit down
day and
Saturday.
age, they can't bring you in via Zoom.
Well, I guess they kind of could have. I just really just not doing real well. I'm just coming off of having pneumonia. I mean, I was in really bad shape 2 weeks ago. I didn't think I was going to even make it. Um, I signed myself out of the hospital AMA because I'm now a single dad to 2 boys that are 9 and 10 that I raise on my own. And I was so worried that there's not any family structure around for them that they would end up in a school like Provo, and because they'd go into state custody. So I just don't do hospitals. And when they say you need to stay, you're dying, I'm like, nope, give me a couple of vitamins, I'll be fine. I'll fight through it. And yeah, I just don't do that because I couldn't see my kids go there.
Yeah.
And I ran into so many kids that were, their parents had passed and they were in some state care package and in Provo with me, or DeSisto, and I just
Yeah.
can't have my kids do that.
No, man. And I didn't get the windfall later in life, so I say this, man. In all honesty, I can't think of a person who probably deserves it more than you, man, because I can relate to a lot of the different things in a lot of the different situations in which you've been. Like I can deeply relate to them, having been in most of those situations myself. In fact, true story. My mom was so worried about structure for me, even though she was like a crazy right-wing evangelist, like trying all sorts of weird things as a child or her child that you should never do. Like this was she was listening to the Alex Joneses before the Alex Jones were Alex Jonesing. Okay, like my grandma was
Yeah.
doing some weird stuff, and she literally put me in a chess camp with somebody who was working on America's Most Wanted for being a pedophile.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that, but so DeSisto was a cult, and that's why they were shut down. One of the reasons they're shut down, the now sheriff of Stockbridge, Massachusetts, was the head director of the school. He was a gay gentleman who was sleeping with the students while he was running the school. That was the craziest school. It was 1,000 times worse than Provo, if you can believe it.
Oh, I
It
believe it.
was
I believe it. I mean,
scary on a whole nother
anytime
level.
you can say whatever you want about Provo not having an overarching structure and nobody to answer to, but at the end of the day, they kind of did. There were enough important people that went to that place that stories got around whether or not they wanted
Yeah,
them to. In places like cults and stuff like that, they make sure those stories don't get out. They do stuff
for
to the
sure.
kids, like they or if they or they just don't care if they do because they're literally abusing everyone. So like everyone is in on the abuse, so nobody has an incentive to report because you'd essentially be
Right.
snitching on yourself. And I think that that's kind of this is why I get so frustrated when I hear people say, and this has nothing to do with the, pro-life, but when I hear people talk about caring for the kids, and I'm like, well, how many kids have you adopted? Do you go and work at any of these places where kids are? And you just hear like, nope, nope, nope. And I'm just like, so you don't give a shit about kids. We're just a talking point. But when something actually happens to us, you don't do anything until you're forced to, like with Trails Carolina or like with the
Yeah.
system. These places are not shut down until literally there's no other option. And it just bugs me because they continue to exist and kids continue to get shuttled into them. And even though they have changed for somewhat the better, I just don't think I would say that Provo is any better of a place now than it was when you were in there. I think just
Oh, I'm
different
sure.
stuff happens.
I hope it's better than, I mean, there has to be some oversight now, and it's got to have changed somewhat. I hope. Um, I can't imagine that they're still doing some of the things that they were doing
They are.
when I was there.
They are. I see it every day, people joining our group that, at least from the girl side, girls that are just
They
coming
still
out of the
shoot
program
Thorazine?
today.
Do they still
Huh?
shoot kids up with Thorazine and throw them in the box?
I don't know if it's Thorazine, but when I was there, it was Haldol,
Halidol.
and yeah,
They use Halidol,
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
Haldol and Cogentin was the big one for me.
but I
Thorazine is what they use. Thorazine gives you the worst migraine after you wake up. I mean, it's just such a heavy sedative. I mean, it just
I think I
knocks you
got
out.
Thorazine one time and I was allergic to it, so they weren't able to give me that anymore. Like I became exceedingly violent on it, but like violent and non-responsive. Like I didn't know what I was doing. My body was just absolutely rejecting the medication. So places weren't
Did,
allowed to
did,
shoot me up with that.
when you were there, did they have the box there when you guys
Oh
were there?
yeah,
It was just a
dude.
little.
I spent countless hours in the box with the door shut, or where they would sit there. What they loved to do is they would open up those doors that were right by the thing, and they would let the cold air, the cold Utah air, come right into the box, and they would chill you, and they would take away
Yeah.
everything and just leave you in there in your boxers and lock the door with the window open.
Oh, you got boxers. That's nice.
I think
You
it's
didn't
just
get
because
any.
at that point they didn't want to look at us. I don't think they wanted to look at naked kids. I think
Did they bring you tray
we
there?
shifted somewhat in that regard.
No, I think they wanted to look at us naked. It's why we were naked.
Yeah, I'm saying that's what I'm saying. I think changed in between the time
Yeah.
you were there and the time I was there. I think the pet staff that they got genuinely didn't want to look at kids naked, but they had no other problems hurting in any other capacity, if that makes sense. Like the nakedness was too far, but beating them, that was fine. That was fine.
Did they have dial nines when you guys
Oh
were
yeah.
there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna mention, Kane, I'm glad to hear during your stay that when they found you were allergic, they stopped giving you that. I do know a person who may come on here in the future that they knew she was allergic to the medication and still kept shooting her up with it. And then blamed her for it, that she was supposed to remind them that she was allergic to, I think, Haldol. And I don't know if we have had her on here yet, but yeah,
Did
they
I
still.
never saw a real doctor when I was there. Nobody that was professionally capable of making a diagnosis or prescribing. I'm not even sure how the prescriptions, the medication came to be, but I
We
was
had
just
they eventually brought in, but they eventually brought in a doctor. And he would come in and you'd see him right when you got there, and then he would prescribe the medicines, though I have to say, I have no idea if this guy's credentials were real. I mean, I know what I saw on the wall, but I think if we've learned anything from Dr. Love, the little meme of the kid who was pretending to be a doctor down in Florida, and he got
yeah.
women to let him see him as a gynecologist, you don't always know if your doctor is legit. So I don't
Right.
know if he was legit or not, but we did start seeing somebody, and then the nurses would just give you your pills at the window, and
Mhm.
then you'd have to do like the whole mouth check. You have to
Yep.
lift your tongue and everything so they can see that you didn't cheek them. But
Yeah.
I think you'd find that the vast majority of the system has not changed, other than the standing IPS. That's the only thing I can think that materially is different.
Yeah, there's
Now,
no
when
like
you
overt obvious abuse. They've just gotten better at hiding it and making it more not as obvious, right?
so now when you guys were there, did students ever need to be transported to the ER because of?
Yeah. My friend got his arm broken in 4 different places, and he had to have pins put in because the staff felt like they were doing the whole "you're resisting" thing. Like, bitch, he's not resisting. They would be like, bend forward while one person is pushing you down, and they'd be like, come back,
Yeah.
and then they push you forward. It's just typical cop crap when they're on a power trip. They're telling you to do the very exact thing they're ordering you not to do. It's just like, that
So
typical put your arms
we
back,
get
sit upright type impossible
they were
instruction.
really strict on how our drawers looked, how our beds were made when I
Yep,
was there.
all of it.
There is a movie, it's a Lifetime movie,
I watched it.
Cruel
Yep.
Instruction. That's based off a girl's story that I was in Utah with. I was there
Oh,
when she was really sick and they kept telling her she was faking it. They delayed medical care for her for so long that she almost died. Um,
there's a mini series coming out in July on HBO. 3-part series. I'm not sure what school it's going to be about, but
so I actually am in contact with that person that's involved with that, and she should be coming on our show soon to give her interview. So looking forward to that one.
I wonder what year she was there.
I want to say 06,
Oh
2006.
God.
But yeah. Thank
I
you
still have
so
nightmares of that place.
huh?
You guys still have nightmares? Do you guys still
Man,
wake up
I can still see the
if you're
floor
there?
layout. I can still see the floor layout to this day. If somebody dropped me in the middle of Provo tomorrow, I could still find, do, and repeat every action that I would ever have to do. I could tell somebody where the bathrooms are. I could tell somebody where they get their food. I could tell somebody where they dump their tray. I remember every single thing about that facility, and I am blessed with a memory that just works like that. I don't know if you'd call that a blessing, but yeah, I can still even see the layout in my head when I close my eyes.
I
I
could vaguely. I blocked out so much.
same.
And even with people, I can like when I hear names or see them on the website, I remember them, but I don't remember them. Like I just know it's familiar. You know. The only the only thing that was good there was the food. When I was there, they had amazing food. You know, scones and just
No.
live
Obligatory
breakfast.
stone mention. We're gonna find out one day. We're gonna find out that those scones were secretly some sort of a recipe that made us all like 10 times more compliant, and everyone's gonna
Bunch of
say,
Seroquel in
yeah,
it.
and everyone's gonna say, you know what? I'm okay with that. Can I get some of those scones?
Yeah.
Well, Mark, man, it has absolutely been a pleasure. Our
For sure.
time is wrapping up here,
Definitely.
but man, I just want to say, like Steph said, man, if that book ever comes out, send it our way, man, because I would
For
definitely
sure.
read that, brother.
I'll definitely keep in touch and let you guys know
Yeah, please
what comes.
add me on Facebook, stay in contact, and yeah, man.
Definitely.
Uh,
Yeah, thank you so much for your bravery and your courage, your vulnerability. Like this is hard stuff and I'm really grateful and I'm really proud of you to even be standing here, sitting here
I
saying
just
what
know
you're
that,
saying.
you know, if it keeps one parent from sending their kids to that school, then it was certainly worth it. You know,
That's
Exactly.
literally what my stated goal is. If I stop one parent, then I will have done enough.
Yeah.
That's kind of where
yep.
I sit with it. Like I don't need to do anything. I just need to change one mind. And that's cool with me. So,
Mhm.
Hopefully, one day when they shut down Provo, we can all be there to celebrate it.
oh man,
Yeah,
I will fly out there for that. And
I'll bring the
For
scones.
sure.
I'll bring the beer. I'll bring the beer. I will start drinking again that day. Okay.
Right.
You are going to see a different side of Kane. All right. But yeah, so we just want to say thank you to everyone who follows us over here on Investment Club PCS, and we will be back next time with a new episode. So for Stephanie and Mark, Kane, and we'll catch you guys next time.